Chapter 15. The Christians begin all acts and thinking by using Al-Kalam the All. Tablet 17. And who is this Cleophas? 19 times 6 equals 114. Lo, this Cleophas was the son of an Egyptian Cleopatra and a Roman called Mark Antoninus, simply Mark Antony. Cleophas was conceived illegitimately at one of the orgy parties of Herod the Great. This party was attended by Cleopatra, which means of a noble father, and Mark Antonius. Their union caused much controversy because Mark Antony was a Roman dignitary, who at the time was considered divine in the truant of deities like Caesar. According to Roman law, it was against the law for a Roman dignitary to have sex with a woman other than a Roman. However, when Mark Antony saw Cleopatra at the party, he wanted her. They copulated, and Cleopatra became pregnant, and the child was born December the 25th, 1 AD. The baby's birth had to be kept a secret in Rome and in Egypt. This was done with the help of Herod the Great, a good friend of Mark Antony. In reality, Herod only had 9 wives, but he put on record that he had 10. Thus he added Cleopatra's name onto his other wives, because many people saw the party list with that name. And even though Mark Antony later married Cleopatra, their union was not recognized by Romans nor the Egyptians. This meant that any child conceived of this relationship would be illegitimate and regarded as being fatherless. Cleopatra was under the cat god Bast, mother of Mahis, goddess of life, fruitfulness and of cats. So you get the Roman Catholic Church, which is Roman cat and holistic, symbolic of the Sphinx, which is a catman with the face of a pharaoh on it, and the body of a lion, which symbolized the Egyptian Lion of Judah. The immigration law was broken by Cleopatra. They had immigration laws. People were not allowed to come into Egypt without being announced, and when you came in, you had to present things to the deities, or you had to be a deity. If you were a deity of your own land, then the pharaoh allowed you in to sit in his court. But a normal couldn't do that. He'd get killed, or they'd come through and take the wives, kill the men, and throw them into Egypt to marry them off. Mark Antony got in because he was a deity to the Romans, and he married an Egyptian woman who was of nobility. This was against the law. The Romans saw the Egyptians as mortal people, and the Egyptians saw the Romans as mortal people. So when Cleophas was born, he was supposed to come to the throne at age 13. In Egypt, when a young pharaoh in the royal house became of age, to become the pharaoh he had to be 13 years old, and the priest had him recite his family lineage and some of the rituals, and then he would ascend to the throne. However, the whole ordeal of the birth disturbed them, because he was a half Egyptian and the son of a Roman deity, thus the son of God, and the Egyptians refused to let him take the throne in Egypt. Cleophas, not being accepted in either land, being half Egyptian and half Roman, Cleophas left Egypt at age 13, travelled to India and through Israel and then back to Egypt, and died in India at age 71. He is the Jesus that is buried in the tomb of Kishmir in India. 21 references in ancient texts have been found that bear witness that Jesus, called Cleophas, stayed in Kishmir. The name Aish Mukam refers to Jesus. The word Aish is derived from Isha or Isa, and Mukam means place of rest or repose. Asaph was another name that was used to refer to Jesus. Evidence of a man called Jesus staying in India can be seen by the simple names of the many towns and places in Kishmir. At the time when Cleophas lived in Kishmir, the Happy Valley was the center of a great religious, cultural, intellectual and political revival. The kingdom of Kishmir was the center of an enormous Indo-Scythian empire and was ruled by the great king Kanishka I from 78 through to 103 AD of the Kushkan dynasty. After this returned to Jerusalem from India, well versed in spiritual teachings, vindictive, so he launched the first evangelist teachings and went out to teach this gospel or gospel. He went out teaching the Phoenician people that he was the king of the Judahites and the Greeks and the God of the Romans. Thus he became known as another Christ, and he taught under the name Jesus, as it is recorded in their scriptures of him we find. And Jesus, which is called Justus, who are the circumcision, these are only my fellow workers, unto the kingdom of Theos, which has been a comfort unto me. He gained few followers, was persecuted and laughed at, for he paraded around proclaiming to be the Son of God, teaching Hindu mysticism and astrology. His doctrine, Simon Bar Jesus' doctrine, and the real Yeshua's doctrine got combined together to form the present-day Christianity. He went insane. He went traveling throughout India and teaching and healing in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, and there he was referred to as Saint Isa. When Saint Isa or Cleophas was 26 years old, he returned back to Palestine and lived in the wilderness until age 29, and then travelled back into India, where he died at age 71 and was buried in a tomb at Kashmir, India. As you can see, there was more than one man in that day and time professing to be Christ, and even used the very name Jesus. There are 3 mentioned in their New Testament, and 16 others called the 16 crucified Christs. They are Krishna of India, Sakya of the Hindus, Thammas of Syria, Wu-Sabat of the Teledanese, Aya of Nepal, Jesus of the Celtic Druids, Quetzalcoatl of Mexico, Quinnus of Rome, Prometheus of Greece, Thuls of Egypt, Indra of Tibet, Asquaces of Zizapophacy, Attis of Phrygia, Crete the Chaldeans, Bali of Corsair, Maitreya of Persia. All of these were Christ to those who followed them. The answer to all their questions, their pathway to heaven, all were called sons of God and had a blessed mother and can remove the sins from the world. If one wants to know the truth, you must study past and present. You must open your mind and your heart and research if you don't wish to be misled. Yet the Jesus of the Bible is the most impressionable individual of this day and time, and his life is laced in much controversy, not to mention fabrications, alterations and distortions with the sole purpose of misleading. Within these pages you will find facts beyond doubt which can become your own facts by simply researching. Others are divinely inspired. Tablet 18. The Final Journey of Yeshua. 19 times 4 equals 78. Lo, after Yeshua was supposedly crucified, he disguised himself and continued the rest of his travels with Martha and Mary, his 2 wives. As we know, Yeshua the Messiah was originally sent to gather the lost tribe of Judah only. His travels took him all through India and Persia, tracing out the wise men or Essenes, and then back to the land of Nazareth. Yeshua the Messiah had previously made an appointment with Gaspar, one of the wise men whom he had met while in Persia, and would meet again in Egypt at the Giza pyramids. At the annual meeting, when all the Sufi and mystics attended, Yeshua HaMashiach visited Nubia several times, where his family eventually settled. In this sense, he was constantly on the run from people trying to harm them. Yeshua had been given a camel and was about to leave Palestine, and he had to leave his mother and disciples behind. After his supposed crucifixion, the only one he had encountered the next day was Mary Magdalene, and she didn't recognize him because of the disguise Yeshua was in. It was when she went to the tomb that she realized who he actually was. Before he left her, Mary Magdalene was told to inform the people that he had risen. Yeshua told her not to touch him or embrace him, and do not be overjoyed because the events were not over yet. In other words, don't go celebrating telling the people that he was alive. The garden in which Yeshua had supposedly laid is very important because it was to turn into the tomb in which the body of Judas was lain. This garden was to be a special place. It was owned by Joseph of Arimathea, who was saving it for something really important like the body of Yeshua. They were to bring the body there, but in reality it was Judas's body lying there, whom they were to transfer to India in a short while, a journey that never took place. For many angered followers of Yeshua sought throughout the town to find the betrayer Judas in hopes to stone him to death. Thus, Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea had to move very quickly with their plot of what to do with the body of Judas, first hanging it on a tree for all to see, and then disposing of it by throwing it off a cliff. That it burst asunder, and this is how the story goes. Judas Bar Simon, called Judas Iscariot, realized on the cross that he was playing the role of the Messiah Yeshua. He had no choice but to act the part because he was transfigured to look like the Messiah Yeshua, and everyone knew without a doubt that he was the Yeshua regardless of his refuting who he was. Joseph of Arimathea, one of Yeshua's secret disciples, knew that it was Judas on the cross and feared that the other devoted followers of Yeshua might recognize that it was Judas and not Yeshua on the cross because he had transformed back into himself. Knowing that they were searching everywhere for Judas so that they could kill him for betraying Yeshua, and after this, Joseph of Arimathea, being a disciple of Yeshua, but secretly, for fear of the Judahites, besought Pilate that he might take away the body of Judas. In the time of Yeshua was the order of the Essenes, which constituted the last remnants of those brotherhoods of prophets. The Essenes, then known as the Sons of Light, were a sacred community established in the ancient wisdom that embodied messianism, prophecy, ecstatic visions, astrology and mysteries. The tyranny of the masters of Palestine, along with the jealousy of an ambitious and vile priesthood, had pushed them into retreat and silence. They no longer fought as did their ancestors. They became gratified in preserving their traditions and had two main centers, one in Egypt beside Lake Meoris, the other in Palestine at Al-Haadi beside the Dead Sea. According to tradition, Joseph of Arimathea, the uncle of Yeshua, was associated with the Essene order, as were Joseph, son of Hashbida, and Mary, daughter of Amram. Jesus was an Essene who was infused with the Essene ethics. Joseph of Arimathea, a wealthy and devoted Israelite who was a member of the Sanhedrins, the high council of the Judahites, and held a high office. Being a secret follower of Jesus, Joseph wished to prevent the body of Judas from hanging on the cross overnight. So he went boldly to Pilate after the crucifixion and asked for the body of Judas, who Pilate thought was Jesus, and told him that he wished to lay it in his own new tomb he had secured for him, which had been cut out of the rock of Golgotha, thereby offending Moses, which only allowed the disgraceful burial to be executed. Yet, it was common for friends of the crucified to purchase their bodies, which would otherwise have been cast out and refused, a prey to carry on birds and beasts, and give them a decent burial. And Joseph would offer Pilate his price. In any case, he obtained the body, and Pilate gave him leave, and he, Joseph, came therefore and took the body of Judas away with the help of another, that being Nicodemus, another one of Yeshua's secret disciples and a Pharisee. They took the body of Judas Iscariot off the cross and stuffed all the sauce with spices and hung it on a tree for all people to see, so that all the people would assume that Judas had hung himself. That same shadow hour, they took the body of Judas down from the tree and anointed it with about 100 pounds of oils of myrrh and aloe, and put the body in the tomb. Because of Judas's repentance, the Almighty Enki, the Anunnaki Elohim of death, by permission of Anu, the Most High Elyon Elionel, snatched his soul, and the snatching of his soul left this impression through the cloth. The Essenes came, and they were made to move the tomb and take the body out. Two Essenes were left to answer the questions about what was to happen. Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea gave the body to the masses of the people who hated Judas, and those people started destroying the body, beating on it, and they threw the body off a cliff so that it may burst asunder. In a matter of hours, everyone thought Yeshua was dead. No one questioned the body being thrown off a cliff. The story of Judas and Yeshua being dead was perfect, and the plot of the Essenes worked perfectly. The Essenes set up this plot to overthrow the rulers. The story of the resurrection went far and became popular, and gave the Essenes more power. This angered the Judahites, and they sent out to massacre the Essenes. This is the story of the Masada. However, rather than being massacred or being killed by the Judahites, the Essenes all committed suicide. But before they committed their suicide, they took their tablets, wrapped them up, and buried them in a cave in jars, only to be discovered in 1947 AD, known as the Dead Sea Scrolls or the Qumran tablets. When Yeshua was walking with two men of Emmaus, they did not recognize him because of his disguise. They asked him, "Are you a stranger in Jerusalem?" However, when they did realize who he was, for he sat down to a meal and broke bread with him, he vanished from their sight. Yeshua couldn't take a chance of anybody going and telling that he was alive and of his whereabouts.